Good afternoon. Welcome to the latest edition of the Marketing Department. Today I'm joined by Carl Clift of Encore Solutions, and we're going to talk a little bit about training grants. Good afternoon, Carl. How are you doing?
Hey, Peter. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. Wish I was out playing golf, but that's not to be today.
Not today, no.
Carl has been involved in training grants that are funded by the province of Ontario for the past 4 years. And today we wanted to talk about how those grants work, how they can apply to clients in the golf industry, who's involved, what they have to do, and what kind of results they hope to get out of it. So, Carl, let's start off by just saying who qualifies for these grants?
Well, the program actually, Peter, is called the Canada-Ontario Job Grant. So the idea here is you have to be an Ontario company with a CRA number in Ontario. And the idea is that you have to have employees, usually T4 employees, because the point of the grant is to train the employees. So owners themselves, shareholders, are not eligible to be trained. The employees are. And the idea with the program is that they're funding, the government is funding, and I'll go through the money in a little while, but they're funding up to 85% of the training grant, with the idea being that the employees themselves are the ones that are going to be learning. And the idea is that from this learning, those employees are going to be able to do a better job for that employer. And usually in the case of small to medium companies, they're trying to get these employees to be able to make more money for the company, earn more than the money themselves with a greater salary because they're more qualified, or perhaps even work more hours. So it's a very simple process actually in terms of how this is set up, and it's simple to explain to somebody in person. And we've done quite a few of these in the last 4 years as well, particularly with golf courses, both private, semi-private, and public. So really, the key here is to understand is that you have to have employees, they have to be T4, they have to be working at the facility, and most of the time they're going to be in some business marketing strategy role with the company. And the idea is that we're going to be training them in order to be able to make more money for the company itself, and to be able to make more money for themselves and higher qualification for themselves.
So what's involved in a company getting started in the process?
The Ontario government has actually done a very good job here in terms of understanding how to actually apply. So it's an online application, which I will absolutely help you with because I've done many of these. And realistically, there's only about 10 questions that the company themselves have to answer on the way to applying. You can apply, it'll probably take about 15 or 20 minutes. I certainly can help doing that. But the kinds of questions that are required are things like a CRA number, the address, whether you've got WSIB or corporate liability insurance, which is usually required. And then you will have things like, okay, who's going to be trained? So what's the name of the person and their title? And how much are they earning today and how much are they working today? So the idea, the government's trying to understand which employees in the company are the ones that are going to be actually trained, and do they hold a position that makes sense. In other words, if you are at a golf course, for example, and you've got some type of client-facing position, then you may very well want to have that person as a business owner, have that person trained in the marketing or in retail sales or in customer service or in something along the lines that makes sense to their role with the company. Now, that being said, we've also seen superintendents, for example, take the course as well, because from a marketing strategy point of view, they are great for content creation. So it does make sense to have underneath you, Mr. Business Owner, and who you would like to be able to target in your group.
The process involves obviously being funded by one of these provincial grants. How does the money work?
So the government will pay up to 85% of the grant. So for example, let's assume that you've chosen the courses, and you can see the courses at encoresolutions.com, and we'll talk a little bit about them as well. But let's say that you've applied for $10,000 worth of training. The government will fund up to 8,500 of that. So of that 10,000, you will actually only be on the hook for 1,500. That's a simplistic case, but that's the numbers in general.
Okay, so you've talked a little bit about the kind of content. I mean, you've mentioned marketing and customer service and so on. Are the programs preset by you, or do you work with the client to determine, what might be most appropriate for their employees?
Great question. Yeah. So it's somewhere in between. So we actually have specific courses, and you can see them on our website, encoresolutions.com. We have specific training courses there, and they're around marketing, advanced marketing strategy. Email, for example, is a very specific. So we actually have a number of courses that are canned and ready to go, sort of. But at the same time, we actually customize each of those with the employer or the business owner. And the reason for that is we change this up a little bit. The whole idea is that we've got a very specific process that we run small to medium companies through. And as part of that process, it's called SPEAR, and I'll show that to you. As part of that process, we want to be able to target those employees who are being trained for very specific roles. So we talk about something which is called a BAP, a big ass problem. So we really want to talk to the owners and the employers about their BAP, and then be able to customize the training, the canned part as well as the customized part, to their employees. And I'll give you an example. So if you're a private golf course, for example, you may not be looking at trying to generate traffic and running Facebook and Google and all that kind of stuff. You may be looking at managing more internally that membership. And what's the best communication methods to do that? So, for example, an email, and I can't name the course, but we've done this with a number of courses, with a number of these membership-based courses. So, how do you manage internal communications? Well, one of those is email. What email systems to use? What kind of content to create? What kind of automated sequences? How do you track and how do you report what you're doing on an email? So there's a whole strategy there that says, listen, my big ass problem is I need to manage my internal communications to my membership better, so the membership understands more about what's going on. They don't miss out on specific events. We get better feedback in terms of what's working and not working for the golf course and for the member. Things like that. So many of the times when we look at a public course, we're almost always looking for, hey, I'd like to have new greater revenues from tee times, or more tournaments, or more weddings. But realistically, with golf courses, as well as other small to medium companies, there's many, many different targets that they can think about, not just sales. So as part of that, Peter, and you're quite familiar with this, let me just show you a little bit about what we actually train folks on. So this is a custom process that we use called SPEAR. And this is basically the overall umbrella that sits above all of our training. So for example, if you look at the strategy side, we're looking at things like, whom do you serve, for example? That's your avatar. So we have a very specific areas of our different courses around understanding who that perfect pocket of people are, where to find them, how to engage with them, how to capture the stuff that you're doing with them, etc. So that's part of the strategy. But at the same time, if you look at our courses, you're going to see that's part of the avatar itself. Then as you go from left to right, we actually play out the entire process. So this entire process we teach and we implement on an agency basis for our clients. But many of the courses will touch on different parts of these. And we've talked, Peter, in our discussions about with Fairways about how we're doing this together as well. So the idea here is to share this methodology, and realistically, when you're going to create a training program, we want the training program to be specific, but inside of this process. And this really helps people understand very quickly how to actually bring employees and the workers themselves, the owners themselves, together in a process that actually works for them, so they can actually understand, okay, if my role is to do the following, it sits inside this process, and I can be evaluated based upon what I've done inside of this process. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I, as you know, sat through one of these training sessions, or well, the whole series of sessions for a client a number of years ago. And at that time, some of the sessions were done online and some were done in person. Is that still applicable to the way you train today?
Absolutely, absolutely. Given the COVID rules and what's going on, I think they might be lightening a little bit so we can do that. But traditionally, what we would do is we'll do a bunch of homework online with each of the employees as well as the owner to start with. We'll take that homework. Basically, we're gathering data. We're doing competitive analysis. We're doing our own strategic planning ahead of actually meeting in person the trainees. Then we go on site and we'll actually have a number of training sessions on site. They're usually in the range of 1 to 4 hours, depending on the time frame and the time of year. And each of those training sessions will be around very specific objectives that we've defined with the owner and with the employees in this whole BAP session. So once we've defined that, we then go online, we then go in person, and then from then on, depending on the actual goals, we will go back and forth online and usually at the golf course.
Very cool. Can you talk a little bit about some of the success you've had with clients in the past?
Sure, absolutely. So we really do target small to medium companies. So in this space, we've worked with a number of golf courses. So talking to you previously about the membership-based golf courses and understanding how to help them drive internal communications to be able to get better understanding from the members of what's not working, what's not, and really make sure that the value proposition for the member is really honed in for them, because many times that membership call in September or January, February to put your money up, you need to be reminded on a constant basis as to why this has been so good for you, usually in an environment that says this is a more social aspect as well as a playing aspect. So we've done that with a number of membership-based courses. We've also worked with quite a few public courses, and realistically, if you look at Spear here, two things popped out with those. One is very few actually have a process in place. The public courses, they usually have a churn rate with respect to their employees. So trying to get somebody to stay year after year and work through a process has not been easy. And if you don't have a process at all, each person comes in, has to learn something new, and if it's not actually tailored correctly, they're not actually working in alignment with the owners and stuff. So trying to get somebody to work inside of a process with a public golf course totally makes sense. And then the public courses that we've worked with, and we've worked with many in Ontario now, probably 10 to 15 in the last 4 years, it's almost always about understanding who that avatar is, where to find them, which is the traffic sources. And then once you've found them, not just to simply keep making offers. So almost every golf course out there is using social media, Google AdWords, blog posts, and the Golf Now and Underpar, and all they're simply doing is hammering offers out left, right, and center. So we always talk about this, and you can see this on the bottom right, understanding what it costs to go and acquire a customer via whatever traffic source you're talking about, and then what it costs to keep the customer. So one of the key things we've been teaching many of these public golf courses is, once you spent that money and time to get a customer, then what? And it's always the question, what next? So the key here for most of those is going to be, I've spent X amount of time and dollars to get a customer. Let's make sure I put things in place, technology as well as planning, to make sure that I can continue to make offers, continue to make value propositions to that customer on an ongoing basis, both online and on property, so that I don't have to go and find them again. And I think that's probably the biggest key that we find with public golf courses.
Sounds great. I know the session I sat through worked out very well for that client, and obviously I've been privy to a few other clients that you've worked with and had good success with. So thanks for joining me today, Carl. If anybody is interested in pursuing these training grants, and I think it's well worth looking into for just about everybody out there, contact information is below the video screen, and I urge you to contact Carl and follow up and do something along the lines of these training grants. So thanks again. Have a great day.
Thanks, Peter. Great to see everybody. Bye-bye.